I think we'll find that this section is also pretty much straightforward and easy like the other two sections were. But we're going to have to learn some new vocab words just like we did in the other two sections. So the first word we're going to learn is observational study. So an observational study is you observe people or actions. So it's easier to explain what this is with the other one, which is an experiment, which is where you alter people. So literally, if I wanted to do an observational study, I might do this. I might say, I'm curious how many people are going to the Casey's down the street to use their to buy subs, right? So I sit outside the Casey's. Let's say I want to start a Subway in this town. There's a Subway in this town. Let's say I want to start a Jimmy John's in this town, right? And I want to see what my competition has going for them. So I'm going to sit outside Subway. I'm going to sit outside the Casey's, and I'm just going to count. I'm going to count how many people come out with subs, okay, to figure out what kind of demand there is. That's an observational study. I'm not affecting anything. I'm just watching and counting. An experiment, quite differently, is I want to change maybe people's physiology. So a common one is weight loss pills or COVID treatments, right? So I give someone something and then I see how their physiology is affected. Okay, so I think these are pretty easy to understand, hopefully, but if you're not sure, let me know. So let's try a couple. In a study of 377 women with a particular disease, the subjects were monitored with an EEG while asleep. What was this one? Does anyone know? Electroencephalogram. I've been dying for these to become more popular because I want to study my own sleep patterns with them, but they're just too expensive now still. So what kind of a is this? Is it a study or an experiment? The first one out the gate is a bit challenging, right? Because you might be able to argue with me that maybe this EEG is altering them, right? But it's not intended to. So it's intended just to peer into the brain and see how the electromagnetic waves are being affected. So this is a study. And again, if I gave that on a test, you could probably argue to me that having those probes on your head is affecting you, so you might be able to still get points on that. But I think hopefully most of us would see it as a study. Okay, I think 22 is a little simpler. It's going to say, determine whether this study or experiment. 20 patients with Parkinson's disease are divided into two groups. One group receives an experimental drug to fight palsy, the other a placebo. After 1 year, memory recall is measured. I mean, everybody seems to agree that it's an experiment. I think anytime you're ingesting a drug, right, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, they even use the word experimental in it. What does placebo mean? All my medical people in here. Yeah, it's a fake drug. In fact, this is how we do all drug studies is we always do this. We have two groups. One gets the real thing, one gets the placebo, typically a sugar pill or something the body can metabolize without any major changes in its physiology. And then you observe the two groups and how they change. And you compare the real drug to the placebo case and see if there's a big enough change. So a placebo is a fake pill, we'll call it. Okay, so far so good. How about 23? Oh, 23. Identify the type of sampling used: random, systematic, convenience, stratified, or cluster sampling. So in this case, sampling is how do I gather data? So I want to collect information about people, their habits, their physiology, their makeup, all these things so that I can sell products to them, typically is what we're going to talk about in this course. So how do I do that? Okay, so let's look at each one. Let's start with random. For random sampling, you convert names to numbers and then use a computer. I hate to use the word randomly in the description, but I'm going to use a computer to randomly pick a number. I'm going to put a star by this because it is the best sampling technique. It's the gold standard. It's what we want to do as future business owners and people who want to sell products. We want to sample our customers. This is the best. And why is it the best? Right here, convert names to numbers. That removes all bias, right? So there are all sorts of human biases, some that you don't even know you have, and you might hear a name and it might just sound off to you, or you don't like the sound of it, or that name comes from a region that you don't like for whatever reason, right? Now you have a bias towards that person. It's going to affect how you interact with them. Once you convert their name to a number, it is pretty hard to have a bias or an emotional response to a 16-digit number, right? So you've got a 16-digit number, that's now you. Awfully hard to have an issue with that. So that helps remove bias. Now, to make it even better, you have the computer randomly pick out of your 16-digit numbers, it'll pick 100, 200 of those numbers, and those are the people you talk to. So it literally removes all human decision out of the loop, and it's the human that can have the bias and make things skewed. Okay, the next one, systematic. Oh, back to this. This is also why when you call the bank, when you call the credit card company, when you call the insurance company, when you call the school to talk about your financial aid, what's one of the first things they typically ask you? What's your account number? Because they don't think of you as John Doe or Susie Smith. They think of you as 159 whatever, right? So the computer sees you as that number. Okay, systematic is a pattern to pick the participant. So in all these cases, we're trying to select people to participate in our observational study or our experiment. So for example, e.g., you might say every 10th person. So I'm trying to start that Jimmy John's. I'm going to sit outside a Subway and count, and every 10th person, I'm going to go up to them and say, hey, are you interested in a Jimmy John's coming to town? Or I would, have some questions for them. So it's just a way to try to remove bias. So, I just pick every 10th person no matter what, even if they might not be a person I would normally go up to. Okay, the next one is convenience. And this is choose participants closest to you. This is considered a bad way to sample. So I'm very lazy. I need to come up with people to be in my study. So I just grab you. You're right here in front of me. You're easy to grab. You're easy to talk to. So I just ask you about the idea of the Jimmy John's, and I don't talk to anyone else. Why is that bad? Well, for the example I just used of all of you, if you think about it, you're not diverse enough, right? You're all around the same age. You're all in the same school. You're all in the same class at the same time. You're probably all on similar career paths or similar education paths, right? You probably have more in common than you think. And so therefore, I'm not getting a diverse multitude of all the students that might be going to Ellsworth. Okay, the next one, stratified. And this is where you separate people into groups. Let me say participants into groups. For example, the most classic case is I collect 100 people and I'm going to run them through my weight loss test, and I'm going to separate them into men and women because I want to see if the genders respond differently to my weight loss pill. That's the most famous one, is to just split people along gender lines. Or we might split them. This is apropos for college. We might split them into freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. So we'll split them into the 4 classes of college and kind of see if that makes a difference. Okay, the last one is called cluster, and that's where we break an area into regions and talk to everyone. In a region. And when we're talking to everyone, does anyone remember what kind of, what's that? Good, it's a parameter because it's a census, right? We're going to talk to the whole population in that area. That's considered a census. And then I think the book talks about one more, and what they talk about is combination. So it's common to do one or more of these, one or more together. So I might cluster an area, I might break an area into regions and then talk to everyone in the region, but I might then break those people into stratified by separating them into men and women. And then I might even, out of that group, do random. So I don't even talk to everybody necessarily, I might randomly pick. So there's lots of ways you can do sampling. But the gold standard is random, and that's what we're going to talk about mostly in this class. Okay, so let's see what this first one, what they did. So they said a researcher selects every 843rd Social Security number and surveys the corresponding person. So they've got a list of millions and millions of Social Security numbers, and they have the computer just highlight every 843rd. So 843, 1686, etc. Okay, what kind of one would that be? Yeah, so hopefully you see this, every nth person is systematic, and it's pretty simple. Okay, we'll refer back to these as we need to. 24. To determine customer opinion of their food quality, General Foods randomly selects 120 city blocks during a certain week and surveys all homes within the city blocks. So, yeah, they've broken this down. They've broken their city down into block regions. So these are regions. And then notice the words survey all homes. So they did a census there in these regions. And that's classic cluster. Okay, 25. To determine her blood pressure, Deborah divides up her day into 3 parts, morning, afternoon, and evening. She then measures her blood pressure at 3 randomly selected times during each part of the day. Say it again. Oh. So Deborah's dividing her day into separate categories. Yeah, so if we look back, separating things into groups is stratified. So she separated her day into groups or different intervals. So that would be stratified. Now, actually, technically, this one could be considered combination because she then did random times. Yeah, but Yeah, we don't have that as an option, so our best shot is to go with stratified. 26. A woman experienced a tax audit. The tax department claimed that the woman was audited because her name is among the first 500 names on the taxpayer list. Random. What else did I hear? Systematic. I've got to vote for convenience, systematic, random. Which one are you retracting? You want to retract that one? Okay. I could see where you'd think that. So whenever you're given a number, right, it's tempting to go with systematic. The key is they would have had to say every 500th, right? So there's a pattern of collecting after a certain number. Let's eliminate the ones we also think it's definitely not. Is it cluster? No. Is it stratified? No. So they didn't break the tax list into, men and women or something like that. So convenience and random. Your argument is spot on perfect. Can everyone see her argument? The taxpayer list is going to be 100 million names long, and the tax auditors just looked at the first 500. That's how they're picking their people to look at. Seems awfully lazy to me. Convenience, very good. One of the harder ones to decipher is that one. Okay, 27. Determine whether the study is observational or experiment, and then we'll have to decide if there's anything wrong with it. In a survey, 1,400 internet users chose to respond to this question posted on a newspaper's electronic edition. Is news online as satisfying as print and TV news? 52% of the respondents said yes. So first off, is this a study or an experiment? So in asking these people to answer this online question, are we altering them? Are we changing their physiology? No. So I'm hoping you all will see that this is definitely an observational study. We are just observing what people are saying to this question. And it's the observational study because the researchers do not attempt to modify the individuals. They don't alter them. I hope that one's clear. Now, is there anything wrong with this study? Yeah. So there's two things now that we've talked about that it makes it bad. It's convenience. They're just being lazy and letting anyone come to their website and answer. But it's also what I've been harping on since when I first started lecturing. It's voluntary response, which I've been trying to argue is the worst way to get opinions, which has a high chance of leading to bias. And that's wise because you get biased responses. Let's kind of look at these other ones though. The sample is not very large. So in this case, if our sample size, if the number of people is bigger than 30, we're going to say that's okay to proceed. And in this case, they talked to 1,400 people. That is plenty big. The results apply only to internet users. This is true, and it is bad, and is bad, but it just turns out that D is a better answer. Okay, so you could argue that B is correct, but D is the best answer. There is no blinding or replication, which has a high chance of leading to bias. Okay, let's talk about blinding quick. In blinding, the experiment participant does not know if real or placebo. So I can't even think of an experiment where you wouldn't want this, right? So it'd be like, oh, you want to do this weight loss experiment? Okay, come here and we'll give you the pill to see if it works. But then I give you this pill, but then I tell you, oh, it's a placebo, so don't worry about it. It's not going to work, right? I mean, it would completely defeat the purpose. Okay, then there's something called double blinding, which is even more interesting, where the experimenter does not know if real or placebo. And actually, let me amend this a little bit. The participant, the experimenter, and the participant don't know. So you've got, why is this one good? This one's good because let's say you are taking a weight loss pill and you go to the person who gave you the pill and you say, oh, I'm a little bit worried about this pill because I take some other heart medication, right? And then the experimenter kind of says, oh, you'll be fine, in such a way that makes you realize, oh, they just gave me the placebo. Does this make sense? So in this way, the person handing out the pill can't even betray the fact that they know that they're giving you a placebo or the real thing. So obviously you have to have someone behind the scenes who knows, but you would just need one other person who knows which bottle is real and which one's fake, and they can figure out who gets the real thing. So double blinding, very good. And it's all to remove bias and to remove errors in your experiment. Okay, 28. A medical researcher tested for a difference in systolic blood pressure levels between male and female students who are 12 years of age. She randomly selected 4 males and 4 females for her study. Study, experiment. Be careful with this one. If you're measuring someone's blood pressure, all my nurses out there, are you affecting their physiology? You're squeezing their arm a little bit, right? But they should be fine. So you are not altering them. So this, as someone said, this is a study. Exactly right. And again, same answer. They do not modify. Now here's the trickier part of the problem. What's wrong with this study? Excellent answer. I just got done saying that the sample size must be bigger than 30 for this class. And that's going to be true for this class the whole time. And we just said that her sample size in this problem was 4 men and 4 females. That's only 8 people. So she tried to use 8 people. That's nowhere near big enough. So the sample's too small. Is the fact that she included male and females a problem? No, not at all. In fact, that's a good thing, is to kind of see how the genders might be different in that way. This is a convenient sample. I have no sense that she just grabbed the first 8 12-year-olds she could find. There is no blinding. You would not want blinding in a blood pressure test. Okay. Which sampling method divides the population up into sections, randomly selects some of those sections, then chooses all the members from the selected sections to study? Yeah, so it feels almost like stratified, right? Because they're breaking people into different categories. But then this word right here, chooses all members, that's where we get to the cluster part, because they do a census. Okay, last problem. After this problem, you'll be able to do all of Chapter 1 homework. A study is conducted to measure children's growth rates without any treatment applied to the children. What best classifies this study? I mean, they gave you the answer in the question statement. Observational study. Questions on Chapter 1? So again, if you complete your homework before Friday's class, you don't have to show up. You'll get attendance points if you do so. Let me take attendance, and then that'll be it for today.